full body was returned to the land he had suffered for after dying of cancer. The military and civilian regimes that followed were a rude awakening from the big dream Ghanaians had at independence. Some people believe that Ghana still has a long way to go. Even with a unique perspective from the past, the focus remains on the future. In Dr. Nkrumah's own words, we face neither east nor west, we face forward.
Toils of the brave which have brought results.
Yemfambuwa yeman Ghana asana yako yenana numo omoye biko enanume enajumi nyusu yansu seyebeyebi diatuasu. Our forefathers left us a great legacy. Black star of hope, shine on. We are one people with one hope and destiny. Land of integrity and smile. Love is all that we need. Let us all play our part. Let us come together as one. Yeah. Into mummy and your crow, yana mummy. Mumma yamfa odo, yakuya, nyasum yentina. No nikami mama baba, no nikami baba. Eya jaya shong, we need love, we need peace. I need bakume, I need bakume. Someone be and free.
Agenda sponsored by
Malcolm.
Hello, good afternoon. You're welcome to Agenda on TV3. As you will notice, Agenda comes to you now every Sunday at 3 p.m. It is well known that illegal and irresponsible mining is impacting our country negatively, and we know the socioeconomic impact that this is having on our country? Why have we failed to deal with this issue? Today on Agenda, we'll discuss that in detail. My name is Deborah Kwabla. With me in the studio to do this discussion from far left, we have Dr. Eric Chung. He is the CEO, Institutes of Grain Growth Solutions. He's also an environmental and climate change expert. In the middle, we have Madam Hannah Owusu-Koranting. She's Associate Executive Director, WACAM. And on my immediate left, we have Mr. Edward Akwoku. He's the Director of Policy and Research, Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining African Network, ASMAN.
Thank you.
Shortened as ASMAN. Today we're looking at Galamsey. This is an issue that is very well known. But then we'll take some views. We have some views that is recorded. We'll listen to that. When we come back, we'll get into the discussion. We'll be back shortly.
Fighting against illegal mining, also known as Galamsey, remains a Herculean task for the country. Several people, including the Deputy Minister nominee in charge of Justice and Attorney General, is advocating for a total ban on the activity. But what do you also think?
It has even kept long shelf. They should have even done that long time. It's a bad distance. It's destroying our rivers, some of the villages. That is where they drink. That is where our animals have their water to drink. And now, even if you fetch the water, you put it down, it doesn't settle.
Those areas, they don't have work to do. There's no work. So they think that is the best way they can get their daily bread. That's why they are preventing it. But we, some of us, know, as it is, know, it should be banned.
I think it should be stopped. Yeah, totally. Because both legal and illegal, they are destroying the water body. So it should be stopped totally.
I'm from Dunkwao, Ofen. Some years back, you know, when I go there, the place is so green, but now it's so horrible. And even to the point that some of the farmers who even go to the farm, they wouldn't even know there is a hole, and then they just fall as a victim, and then they fall into the pit, and that is all. So it's really, really taking part of our lives. So it should be banned.
People say it's their source of livelihood. Would we also say that armed robbery is a source of other people's livelihood, so we should allow that? I think we should look at it again, not just from one angle and say ban it. You ban it and then what? The waters have already been destroyed. Currently, we know that there are lots of foreigners involved. How do the foreigners get those concessions? It is us, the Ghanaians, who give it to them. So we should be able to look at all these things. But to say ban it, and that's the end of it, I don't think it would solve the problem.
We're looking at illegal and irresponsible mining, whether there's any solution in sight. Doc, we've watched some of the views from these are ordinary Ghanaians, and the environmental impact of this is very well known. Why have we failed as a country to deal with this issue, in your view?
I think as a country, both past and present governments have indicated interest in solving the problem. What hasn't been done so far is the approach. We need drastic measures, but humane and measured, because we're dealing with human beings. That adopts a value chain approach. By value chain approach, I mean from the final off-taker of the gold or the diamond, right? Right to who supplies the diamond. Does he buy the gold from a licensed operator? Who provides equipment, even at the port when it arrives? How do we measure these? In terms of revenue, how do we measure these? And then the men and women who are involved with this. Why are they involved with this? We need to have a concerted strategic approach that deals with everyone with the value chain of this business.
You mentioned decisive action in a humane. How do we combat the two? Because that's really where the issue is. People say these are other people's livelihoods. And you heard the lady say, can we then say that armed robbery is someone's livelihood? If people are causing damage to the environment, shouldn't they be punished? Why should we always look at the human rights approach to some of these, dealing with some of these issues?
Don't get me wrong. An illegality is an illegality.
Exactly.
And as a result, but we are dealing with human lives here. Now, we have over
who have perpetuated illegality.
Exactly. We have almost 500,000 Ghanaians involved in this business. Now, we need to have a human-centered development approach in solving this. Yes, it is illegality. We need to ban it. But in doing this, do we provide alternative livelihoods? How do they live? But the natural tendency is that man must survive. Have we tried to build their capacity, provide them with the skills they need so they can engage in other businesses like agriculture? Until we actually tackle this and let me do a Rambo-style, military-style approach in solving this, we will not be going anywhere.
But, Madam, the communities close to these sites are heavily impacted. Those of us downstream also get our part of the devastation. How do we deal with this issue without always talking about the human face, because this is destruction to farmlands, destruction to the environment, and destruction to human lives.
And destruction to our cultural being, our values as human beings and all that. Thank you very much for having me on the program. But then before we can state a yes or no answer to this question, whether yes, they should be arrested and imprisoned or what, we need to understand how come we are in this mess. The assumption is that we already know, so there's no need to discuss. But then going back into history, Ghana did not used to engage in mining in this manner. It was when we began this Lehman's administration introduced this endowment fund for gold mining, where it attracted foreign direct investments. That was the genesis of the problem. And we shifted from an underground mine to surface mine, where we cannot say for certainty that we had the capacity to address or regulate the problems that would be confronting us out of surface mining. Then again, we have a situation where we had state gold mining corporations. It was state-owned. And now we shifted to multinational mining companies where the ownership was not even within the country. So people just came in, and at that time, when we're engaging in these kinds of things, the regulatory framework was such that community voices were lost in the discussion. So you've been in your community, somebody comes with a paper that, yes, I've been given the authority to mine your land. And people did not really understand that they even had rights as citizens. So with that authority, they could just come and devastate your land and you had nothing to do. So that comes to the point where my brother was talking about, that we have to have a human face to the solution of the problem, because the state created the problem in the first place. And I also want to state that Ghana, we have been very active in attracting foreign direct investments into mining, but the regulation is very poor. And even when governments talked about law reforms to address some of these problems that are confronting us, they limited the amendments to areas where government will generate more revenue, to areas where they could criminalize the activity further, but then left out the areas that will give community people the power to say no to investment if they thought that the investment will not be in their interest. And I'm talking about the ECOWAS directives on the guiding principles and policies in the mining sector, which Ghana ratified in 2009, gazetted in 2010. And it was the responsibility of government to internalize the provisions in the directives by 2014. We are in 2017.
We haven't. We will spend some time to look at the directives and also look at the amendments.
Exactly. So if you are
why you say they are more punitive,
and then you just choose and pick areas that will generate revenue for government, then we are in a problem. And you see, we have opened up the space so much for mining.
So in your view, government is to blame for where we are?
The state has failed, and currently there is an agenda that has been set for Ghana. And the agenda is that, yes, it's small-scale illegal mining that are perpetuating the environmental ills that we face. But if you go into the history of mining, we've had cyanide spillages by multinational mining companies, and we don't have laws to address some of these problems, and these turn out to be legacy problems for the state.
For the state. Well, Mr. Kwaku, the blame is heavily, usually, put at the doorstep of the illegal miners, the one we know as Galamsey. But as she said, there's also irresponsible mining from people who may have been given license to do mining. You are representing artisanal miners, and you get a lot of the blame. How does it feel like to be an artisanal miner, be doing the right thing, some doing the wrong thing, and then all of you are bundled together?
Yeah,
and then what's your understanding of the issues from the perspective of the
I think that
artisanal
the discourse is being articulated properly, and I would like to follow it from where my mom left off. See, the challenge we've always had was that most of the times people bundle everything together, and for today it's very difficult to actually distinguish between whom a legitimate small-scale miner is and who is a galamseer.
But who is an artisanal miner?
Exactly so. So you see, meanwhile, the artisanal miners are the very people, our forefathers and the community people who used to exist those days when even large-scale mining and this ASM development has not started in Ghana. They were traditional miners. They used to just pick some rocks, grind them, and they get their gold. And they had very minimal impact on the environment. You understand? Now, at the moment, although they are still represented and recognized within the statute books, they don't seem to function, but rather it is those who have gone into commercialization, you understand, bringing in huge equipment and the rest who are making their day. But you see, I want to take this opportunity to just try to differentiate between who is a legitimate small-scale miner and who is a galamseer. You see, by law, as they say, once you have the license, you see, you are deemed to be a legitimate small-scale miner. But what people have forgotten is that you may have the license all right, but if you perpetuate wrongdoing by way of the processes that you work, it puts you in the realm of illegality. Because some people have
illegality or irresponsibility.
Yes, but you become illegal as well. Because, for example, you cannot have a license and then you go and mine in a water body.
Because no one gives a license for a water body.
Exactly, because when you know very well that the license is very clear, it gives you a certain buffer zone for you to keep.
Are we sure that the license is ensuring that people are not giving?
Yes, the licenses are very clear on these things. There are provisions on these things that are very, very clear, telling you that don't do A, don't do B, don't do C. But then they go ahead doing it, you see. So for me, that is the problem. Aside that, there are some Ghanaians who are working and, going by the... I know some people, there are some model mines that we can take you around to, completely owned by Ghanaians. They are not mining water bodies. When they finish one pit to the other, they cover them. They try to, afforest it by putting on some plantation. This is what the law requires you to do. But those are very few. And so the problem is that we need to have an effective monitoring and evaluation agency that will be able to enforce these laws. Rather than waiting for the problem to get out of hand, and then we use,
Hasn't the problem gotten out of hand already?
Well, for now, it's out of hand. But I think that it's not too late. We can still do something about it. It will be better than to fold our arms. You can still do something about it. And for me, I've never subscribed to, that brute military tactics of trying to solve it. In fact, we as an advocacy group have had issues with government when they started the task force way back in 2013 and 2011 thereabout. Because we feel that the task force normally take advantage of the situation. Some of the members of the task force just go, they loot, they steal, they beat people left and right. They enrich themselves. In fact, people within communities where some of these task force members have come from have had a cause to tell them, look, these people are enriching themselves. They put up big mansions, hotels, buying luxury cars. So at the end of the day, we are back to square one. Because for me, 2013, you look at all that the task force did across the country. What is the benefit? What is the outcome? Today, we are back to square one. And they see a lot of equipment, which in my view has gotten back into the system.
Doc, the task force, as he's saying, is compromised or is reported to be compromised. So what's the solution? How are we going to deal with this? If we say government started this problem and governments have put in plans to deal with the issue, but the plans are not actually implemented the way they should, and the task force that's supposed to monitor is also compromised. Is there any end in sight?
I think like you rather rightly said, the situation is there, but it is not solvable. The problem has a solution. We need to look at, obviously, the causes we all know in terms of the poverty levels that are very high. We know the weak enforcement of regulations. We know equipment that come in that are not licensed. We know that the economic force behind gold is very huge. I mean, typical example, you have somebody who works in the small scale Galamsey, just carries the stones and sand, earns up between 100 and 200 Ghana cedis a single day. Now, if you multiply that in a month, he earns more than a civil servant. Mm-hmm. So the economic push to get into Galamsey is very huge. And we have not provided solution. They don't. Now, the other bit is the technical capacity. Do they actually have the capacity to build this? Now, until we build the capacity along the value chain in these three areas,
we'll be running around in circles.
Unfortunately, yes.
Mom, you talked about the law. Let's spend some time to look at the law. Amendment was signed, approved in 2014. Yes. And it increased the sanctions. So, yes. 300 penalty points if you do illegal, 3,000 penalty points if you are legal, but then you engage in illegality and things like that. Is that providing enough disincentive to miners?
Well, that will definitely not provide enough incentives, because if you're talking about mining and the turnover, the profits that they are making in a day, the revenue that they derive in a day, and you take them to court and ask them to pay 120,000 Ghana cedis, it's nothing. But then what I want to emphasize is that you see, as part of our laws, we have provisions for community people accepting whether a company, even if it's a registered company or a small scale, large scale, they want the mine to operate in their community or not. What we term the free, prior, and informed consent. This is part of the ECOWAS directives. It's now part of our policy, but then it's not reflecting in the law. So if you take somebody to court on that FPIC, it's not justiciable. And so it creates a vacuum. Again, we have what we call the polluter pays principle. My brother was talking about posting bonds. It has not addressed the problems of environmental hazards, not even in the United States. And government had to subsidize the posting of bonds by huge amounts, billions of dollars, before the havoc that has been created could be addressed. So that is not a solution. But then if we adopt this polluter pays principle, then as and when companies pollute the environment, we take them on and then they clean the mess.
But some of the people who are engaged in this illegality are not formed in companies.
I'm coming to that. Yes,
Artisanal
they
people
are not formed into company.
Together.
But then we have very influential people behind the people that we see.
Who are these people? We always talk about influential people. Who are these people?
In fact, last year, 3 organizations. I'm coming.
Let's name
3
them.
organizations came out with a campaign against mining the Tano Ofin forest reserves. That was a protected piece of land. And the name that was popping up was one Michael Mahama. And we named the person. And he was linked to high places in politics. So the campaign halted it temporarily. I wouldn't say permanently, because as we speak, we are getting signal that they are about engaging in scoping of the area.
But that's a reserve.
That is the point. So that's why I'm blaming government for the lapses. Government has acted irresponsibly. We have mined protected forests. The Genuabipo Forest Reserve is being mined by Newmont. If you go to Obuasi area, the Kubi Forest Reserve has been mined by Anglo Gold Ashanti. If you come to Western region, we have the Bonsa North, Bonsa South, where exploratory work is ongoing. Part of Nwim Forest Reserve has been mined. So if government allows some of this irresponsibility, then people take advantage of the situation. So many people who are out there are there because they see mining as a loose place where anything goes. So if the big shots are not being regulated, why tackle me, the small fly? And people that we always chase and then harass and beat are not the owners of their activity. And they do not own the concessions. And one problem that is emerging from the small-scale mining sector is that people take their leases for exploratory work and they end up mining. And because of poor regulation and supervision, we do not know. Somebody takes a piece of land on the table and then he or she would end up at your place mining, and because we are not supervising, we do not know. So all kinds of illegalities, irregularities are going on in the sector, and that's why I want us to disassociate the various aspects of it and then try to develop proposals or strategies to address them. Yes, if people are mining illegality, we can adopt this approach of looking for alternative livelihoods for them. But those behind the operations, they are not interested in going into alternative livelihoods. They want to devastate the land, to destroy the environment for their benefit. And these people, definitely, if we find them, we should name them, we should shame them, we should imprison them, because they are perpetrating the evils of the society. If a multinational company comes to Ghana and the process of mining violates our laws, beat up human beings, release guard dogs to eat up human beings, that cannot be.
We've had issues of guard dogs eating up human beings?
Yes. It's
in which area specifically?
It's happened in Obuasi for so many years. And it's well documented. If you Google, you'll see a lot of stories. People being shot just because they want...
They went over other people's concessions?
No. They are not Galamsey. They are not Galamsey operators. They are community people who were going to their farms and they were shot along the lines. All kinds of things happened under the guise of mining and development. And at the end of the day, what are we deriving from mining? It's 0.8% contribution to GDP. So all the legacy problems that we're talking about, the mountains that are being destroyed, the water bodies that are being destroyed, the agricultural lands that are being destroyed, the huge cultural sites that are being destroyed. If you go to Wassa West, cemeteries have been destroyed, mined. My daughter has been mined, and because she died and was buried, and the place has been mined. If you go to places, gods had to pave the way for mining companies to operate. And all these things affect the morale of the people. So it's not just a simple matter of, yes, we don't want mining or we want mining, but then we need to understand what we are dealing with. And I'm saying that an agenda has been set for Ghanaians, just as it was set for us before we engaged in surface mining. Now the focus is on Galamsey illegal mining, Galamsey illegal mining. But then if we open up the space and delve deeper into the problems, we recognize that the whole mining has a problem, and we need a national debate as to what we want to do with our resource, whether we want to continue mining in this manner or we want to clean up the mess that has been created. Either we charge them to clean up the mess, or yes, we tell them to go, we'll clean our mess, and then start all over again. And that debate should be left for Ghanaians to do.
Looking at the people behind this mining, she's named a few people, but we know and we've heard that chiefs are behind some of these things. Yeah. We've heard and we've seen foreigners. We've heard and we've seen politicians. If these big people are the brains and the powers behind mining, who then can we charge? Government. But how should government position itself to deal with this issue? Name, shame, imprison, and all that. But we need to put them in various segments and deal with them. So help me to try and put the people in the various segments, the traditional authorities and the various segments, because you know them. You know the various players who are behind this. I
think that the problem is has to be tackled from multifaceted angles. You see, first of all, I do not want to blame a chief who is already seated in his community, and then government has already given a license to a mining company without even due consultation to him.
How about that chief who has given his consent
so
to people illegally to go into his land?
See, but in the first lap, where by virtue of our laws, the law says that the minerals are vested in the state You understand? In the president.
But the chiefs are the custodians of the land.
Yes, but you see, when the
chiefs are the custodians of the land.
No,
so if I'm a custodian, if I'm a custodian of the land,
yes,
and there's mineral on that land vested in the president or in the state, then as a custodian of the land, you need my permission to mine. You don't need me to give you a permit, but I'm the custodian, so you should knock my door before you can enter.
There have been instances when chiefs
isn't that the case?
And the community people.
It's not that simple.
Yes, that's
but
not that simple.
That is the way it should be.
No, let me explain. You see, because the power of the state is superior, according to them, and therefore, when the state or the president, for that matter, gives a license to an entity
without
to
consulting the custodian of the land,
and there's an issue of disagreement, the state's reigns superior. So there have been instances when chiefs and community people have resisted, mine activity, but they have had their way. And then the chiefs at a point has no option than then to condone and to just allow the company and then to negotiate and say, okay, then
you can
and then build me some schools, do that for me. You understand? So for me, that explains why perhaps Ghana as a country is having an issue with having to rectify the ECOWAS protocol. Because at the moment, that aspect of the law, which the country will have to do, that will give power to the community people to say no, will be in conflict with the constitutional provision, which says that the power, or the mineral is vested in the president.
But the constitution can be amended if we are interested in amending it.
So there's a need for a legal reform. That is why she talks about the fact that we did not reform our laws properly. You understand? For me, we need a holistic and a workable reforms as far as our laws are concerned. Let me tell you something. You see, at the moment, there's even this other perception we are creating, which is very bad, and the foreigners feel so bad about it. We're creating the impression that foreigners are the ones destroying the water bodies. We say Chinese, but there are a lot of other non-Chinese foreigners in the country who are doing it. And sometimes people begin to think that there's even a particular agenda against the Chinese, which is very unfair, because I know areas where Americans are doing mining. I know areas where Germans are there, Spanish. I know Nigerians. I know Burkinabes in the system. But every focus, even sometimes blaming the media, you take your cameras and where you go, it's where the Chinese are. But
and they're more visible, and they
may be.
Don't we have more Chinese
than
the other nationals?
It may be so, but it does not necessarily take out the fact that other foreign nationals are also involved. You understand? And then the other aspect is that you see, the fact that you see a foreigner on the field, per our laws at the moment, does not necessarily mean that he does not have the right to be there. Because at the moment, if a concession is demarcated to be bigger than a small-scale mining concession beyond 25 acres, it qualifies to be a large scale. Now, by law, the foreigners are allowed to engage in large scale. What, however, we have failed to do, and again, that comes back to enforcement and monitoring, is that we do not have the capacity to enforce, to make sure that they are doing the right thing. Because the Chinese can be there. They can be there. Maybe they have acquired, let's say, 500,000 acres of land, which is a large-scale concession.
But you see,
but the procedure for mining is what we must have the necessary state agencies make sure that they are doing the right thing. They don't mine in water bodies. Because they may have acquired the licenses. You understand? And they may be paying the right fees for it.
You disagree with well, in just a minute so that we can go for break.
The laws of the country allow corporate bodies, registered entities, to engage in large-scale mining. So every small-scale mining is left for
locals, exactly.
For locals. But
and the amendment actually took care of that.
Yes, the law allows that if I'm a local entity, a small-scale miner, I have the right to employ the services of the technical service of foreigners to aid me in my work, providing support services. Exactly. And so that is where the catch is. But as for small-scale mining, it's left to Ghanaians. And because of this caveat, where you could deploy the services of other people,
technical
assistance, that's
especially non-Ghanaians.
Non-Ghanaians. That's where the small-scale miner will front for those entity to mine on his or her behalf.
So we front, we get the we get the concession, and then we give it. Don't hold that for me. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll continue on the discussion. We are looking at illegal and irresponsible mining and the devastation it's causing to our country. We'll be back shortly.
I will do my daughter's farewell ritual.
By the way, that's a father's right.
What duties have you fulfilled as a father in 15 years that you're asking for rights?
Do you want to break the tradition?
You shattered my trust and ended our marriage. Can't I even break the tradition?
Dad, I've decided. You'll wear this for the rituals. This will match with mom's attire too.
It's lovely.
Divorce happens between husband and wife, not between parents.
Do Not Love Me So Much shows weekdays at 8 p.m. on TV3, and it's brought to you by Yamvita Onga, Malcolm, and supported by Unia 95.1 and 3FM 92.7 Accra.
It's time to turn up. Join the fun and the excitement of the latest and dopest music show.
Charlie, you are watching Martin watching.
Featuring the freshest local and international music videos. Get to know your favorite stars.
My name is Yvonne Nelson.
Choose the videos you want to see and go down with words on the street.
I would not kiss someone for 1,000 Ghana CDs.
Not order, even normal.
All you gotta do is tune in each time for your weekly dose of quality entertainment as we explore our world to discover all that is trending. Talk of music, movies, gossip, cultures, fashion, health, and innovation. Get ready to get buzzing. Buzz Extra. Yeah, buzzy.
Buzz Extra shows on Mondays at 4 p.m. Make a date on TV3.
A story about Azra and Karim. Love is all they have after they met in a sports academy and have been together ever since. But will this love hold when challenges set in the relationship? Love shows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Don't miss it, right here on TV3.
Now this is your Empress Nanama Ajiman McBrown, aka Mrs. Mensa. This is Talented Kids, and I'm here and I'm enjoying myself. Please do watch it every Sunday, okay? Brim!
And most of all, win the heart of the nation. Remember, there's a 10,000 Ghana Cedi cash prize and a 6,000 Ghana Cedi educational fund up for grabs for our eager competitors. Make a date with us this and every Sunday at 4 p.m. on TV3 and watch as our contestants show how worthy they are of the top prize. Talented Kids, free to play.
Talented Kids is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Mosquito Coil, and Napa Mackerel, Indomie, Cowbell, Our Milk, Mada Powdered Soap, Pepsodent, Blue Band Margarine, First Bank Financial Services, Royal Drinks, Jack and Jill Lucene, Diamond Baby Diapers, and Sandra Ice Cream.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Agenda. We're discussing illegal and irresponsible mining and whether there's any solution that we can put across to the powers that be so that they can deal with this issue once and for all. Yes, Doug, you wanted to make a point before we went on break.
Yes, the problem is that we talk about a lot of foreigners mining in Ghana, but we should also realize that we give them access to the land. And Ghanaians cooperate with them. Now, that brings us into a diplomatic situation. So we should also explore the diplomatic channels that we have. I actually read that some embassies have had meetings with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources in trying to regularize their nationals in the operation of Galamsey in the country. That is very important.
But Galamsey is, the word Galamsey is illegal.
The word Galamsey is illegal.
And small-scale mining, our law, cannot be for foreigners.
No, it isn't. But earlier indicated we need to have the technical expertise. Because if you have the land, but we have the technical expertise in mining.
Doc, the way we are going, mining our reserves, mining our water bodies, doesn't that give the indication that the areas that are supposed to be mined are mined already? Because if we are moving to the reserves and the water bodies, then do we have anything to mine?
This brings us into a very critical situation. How well our institutions prepared to support these institutions? do you have institutional failures in solving this problem? The EPA speaking with the Mines Department and the Minerals Commission? Do you have cooperation within these institutions that actually... Let me tell you a very funny story. I was told that the meetings even with the regional directors of the region, together with the Minerals Commission, with the military, that we will go and have an operation and arrest illegal mining. Let's say on Monday, you're going there tomorrow, Tuesday. Before you go there on Tuesday, there is nobody there. Within the same security circles that they have a discourse, somebody had leaked the information to the illegal miners. So it is a very big problem.
Some of the security people are involved themselves. You'd be surprised.
So it is a very big issue. One of the things we've not looked at is even the revenue that we are losing as a country. Apart from the fact that we know that some of the illegal miners, small-scale miners, sell their gold to PMMC and a few others, there are a big chunk of the gold leave the shores of Ghana unaccounted for. And that is a big loss for the country. So we have a big situation at hand. And despite that, we are talking about just even the gold and the people involved. Other things we don't look at is the long-term and effects of these. For instance, a research done in the Western region indicates that as a country we need about 1 billion Ghana cedis, about 250 million, just for land and water reclamation alone. Now, generations upon generations.
And that's if we are reclaiming without costing more.
Unfortunately,
more
yes, that's the situation. And this is just only in the Western region. What happens in other parts of the country? We have 10 regions in the country at the moment. So the situation is such that we have to, like I opened earlier, we need to be very drastic in getting this situation under control. But we should not leave it to government alone. We need to have what we call inclusive growth. Every individual, all stakeholders who are responsible for actually the monitoring and evaluation of these activities. That calls for the EPA licensing, the Minerals Commission, the Geological Survey Department. We need to have these people on the field, monitoring, ensure that if I give a license for 1 acre, it is 1 acre of land that is actually being mined on. But if it extends, then we have the punitive actions on regulation that should take place. But if we don't do that, and then we just said, okay, well, we leave it only to the military, or we leave it only for the Minerals Commission, then we will not be doing well. And like Mrs. Ozu mentioned earlier, we need to have the community involvement. The community must actually raise their voices.
And that ECOWAS protocol must
must
reflect in our laws.
And that is very, very important.
The Minerals Commission said they might consider holding on to issue new license. Do you think that will provide some relief to the issue?
I think now it does not make economic sense, environmental sense, legal sense to continue issuing licenses. You see,
so they shouldn't consider it, they should do it.
Yes, we have already opened up the space too much for mining. And you know, Ghana is not dependent on minerals. That's a mistake people make, that mining is contributing so much to our economy. 0.8% contribution to GDP. That's the Ghana EITI report for 2014. So that's government's report. When we did the reconciliation, that's what came out. And we are talking about huge legacy problems of the state. And if we try to even think economically, if you look at the reports that Wildlife Forestry Commission did, and then what UNTAD did.
And UNTAD is?
United Nations Trade and Development. They give a clear picture of what we lose when we destroy forests. The sale of bushmeat alone was giving us 5 times what we realized when we destroyed that forest and mined for gold. So
that's sad.
Yeah, oh yes. In 2005, UNTAD report indicated that we got $46.7 million from gold. And the same year, we got $200 to $300 million from the sale of bushmeat. And that's just one parameter from the forest. So we've left the microclimate and everything intact. So it was repeated in 2009. The results were the same. So it doesn't make economic sense to mine, just irresponsibly as we are doing, because communities are being saddled with all the legacy problems. Mining companies are not internalizing the cost of environmental degradation, the cost of water pollution. If you go to key mining communities, for instance, the Awunsu is a river. The Awunsu pit is a pit constructed by a multinational mining company to engage in these activities. We have the Subri River being dammed. And so if you are living in Subri, so in the western region,
then
and then you are fetching...
You don't have safe water.
Exactly. You don't have safe water. If you go to the Etiwa forest, where they want to mine bauxite, it's housing many water bodies, including the bigger ones that are already polluted. If you go to the Ejenuabipo forest, we have 12 water bodies taking their sources from the forest. So once you destroy these micro environmental situations, it has repercussions for future generations. And companies are not being taxed to internalize these costs in the operations. So even if we are getting 100% from the gold sale, what will that translate into the environmental, economic, cultural costs to the state? We are not doing this. And that's why even as we talk about the illegal mining operations, whether to wipe them out or not, we should also be thinking economically, environmentally. Have we done a real cost-benefit analysis of the situation to know what the real cost of mining is to the state? No, we haven't done that. And the regulators will tell you that we don't have the capacity because Ghanaian researchers wouldn't want to do that, foreign researchers wouldn't want to do that. And so that is a gap that we have not addressed. And you see, we can have the political will as we have in today, but we also need the political direction to engage in activities, and that is where we need to disaggregate the issues in mining and then try to develop various strategies that will help address the problems. Otherwise, we'll continue talking. If you go through the mills, you realize that we talked about mining being a cartel so many years ago. We talked about mining destroying our very fiber, our very value as a state,
and even our culture.
Yes, the value orientation of society. Now we are oriented towards making money and not towards living in harmony with nature. And that is not Ghanaians, because our constitution states that land does not belong to us. It belongs to those, exactly, those who died fighting for it, and those of us are supposed to use and preserve and protect for future generations. So we are living as greedy generation, trying to consume everything that has been left to us to the detriment of society. And if we continue like this, I'm not sure Ghana can continue to be a state in the next 20 years.
If you had to say something to the commission, that's given the indication that they might stop issuing our licenses.
They should stop issuing out the licenses, and then let's do a cost-benefit analysis of mining. And once we are convinced that yes, mining is profitable as a state, then we
need to regulate it. Yes. When you look at visuals of miners, whether legal or illegal, the environment in which they work looks so inhumane. Isn't there a better way to do mining? You know, you work with a lot of artisanal miners. Isn't there a better way? Because you see people in pits working in a very inhumane, very unsafe environment.
Well,
is that the only way? It doesn't look good.
It's because we seem to have turned a blind eye to it, and from time immemorial, that's how people have been operating. And it comes back to what Doctor said. You see, we don't seem to have built the capacity of the ordinary small-scale miner to know that, look, safety, health and safety issues are very crucial. You have a small-scale miner working, and he does not even know the effects of the mercury that he's handling. He doesn't know. It's only when it begins to show physically on him, you know, when he begins to see some rashes on him, that he begins to see that something is going on. But even then, they care very little because he's very much concerned about what he's getting out of it. Now, I think that, let me just come back quickly to what the Minerals Commission or the Minister for that matter said.
Yes, please do that briefly, but I want us to talk about the work environment of that miner as a person.
I personally disagree with those thinking that we need to put an absolute ban on the issuance of licenses. I rather think that...
Why should we keep issuing if we are going into areas that are not supposed to be mined?
If you stop issuing new licenses and you don't have the capacity to enforce those working on the field, even without licenses, then for me, you would have opened the floodgates. Now you have stopped me. You don't want me to come for the license, yet you don't have the capacity to come and monitor me on the field to see whether I'm working or not. Then we will be nowhere. It will just be going on, and Minerals Commission will also not have the legal or the moral high ground to even go to the field. I think that, like I keep saying, one of the major solutions will be that government should commit a lot of resources into empowering the institutions that will be able to go to the field, monitor, and make sure the right thing is being done.
Okay, we'll come back and talk about the miner, but let's look at the institutions.
Yes.
We have the military, the police, Minerals Commission. Who is in the task force?
Immigration.
These are people who are employed and paid by the state.
Yes.
What other empowerment do they need?
No.
They are paid by the state.
For me, if you're talking about the direct
what empowerment
regulators,
do they need?
The direct regulators who should ensure responsible mining, I don't see why I should bring in the military. It is rather the Minerals Commission, the Environmental Protection Agency, you understand? Those are the agencies.
But these are agencies of states.
Exactly.
And members of a task force
for me,
working for these agencies are paid by the state.
Are ad hoc, committees.
Yes, but you talked about motivation.
Exactly. But I think that, you see, if you have empowered the Environmental Protection Agency and the Minerals Commission, they have an inspectorate division where every week they can visit every mining site to see what is going on. If somebody is doing something illegal, they tell the person stop, or they issue a warning. Sometimes you even revoke the license. Why revoke the license and see the person still operating? That is where you want to enforce, the person. Exactly. So that's where you might need the police and then subsequently maybe the military. But I think that at the forefront of enforcement and monitoring should be the EPA, the Minerals Commission, and those ones. And they don't even have the capacity to even go around and see what is going on. They have these district mining committees, and you'll be surprised, most of the committees are not even working. Sometimes you go to some district, and the district mining committee themselves, some members are themselves perpetuating illegality.
Isn't that the main reason why the district committees are not working? Because when we say we don't know these things are happening, I find it very difficult because we have farmers farm on those lands, we have district teams closer to the problem, we have sub-district teams closer to the problem, we have chiefs, we have community people. We know the problem, don't we?
Oh, we do.
We do.
The issue is that...
And we are thinking that someone from Accra should come and enforce the law. Isn't that where the problem is?
We have to look at a much more concerted effort where each one of us become responsible for this. And we do not engage in blame game and hold the people responsible to account. Let me go into what we actually read, even from the MPP manifesto. Now, they promised us that they are going to reform the whole sector. Now, is that the approach they are taking? Now, are they going to get cooperatives? Now, the good thing with cooperatives is that they have a good bargaining power when it comes to environmental consciousness. It comes to even access to loans and finance. They have a bargaining to even the price of the gold. And then even with committees, if they have members who are not working properly under very good environmental conditions, paying their taxes, and actually reclaiming the land, they can actually bring them out, and then we could actually identify the bad nuts. But this approach, we've not seen it yet, but we should be holding government responsible for this, because we cannot, for any reason, indicate that, oh, it is only the military, it is only the EPA. It is a collective responsibility, something
all of us,
the media especially. You are doing a fantastic job.
Great. I wanted to say that we are doing a great job.
I'll give that to you. But we shouldn't just rest on all. We have to keep on getting this message to the public. We have to be responsible citizens. Remember, we are told to be citizens and not spectators.
Not spectators.
Exactly. And
so if you see a miner mining illegally, if you're a citizen, you will do something about it.
Definitely.
And not just watch.
No.
So, Doc, give us, if you have to say something to government, would that be your strongest point? We have to be citizens and not spectators. Or what else would you want to say to government?
You see, I indicated that we should move from just mere talk, rhetoric, to action. How are we taking these issues seriously? I mean, the effects and the impacts of Galamsey and this mining activity, we all know they are so severe.
Now Ghana Water is struggling to to get safe water into our pipes. Mom, let's talk a little bit about that miner. I still want to spend a minute to talk about that miner who is working in that very unsafe environment.
Well, I think as a state, we should intensify education. And from now, it should begin from the nurseries through to the universities, the environmental consciousness of the people. We should also understand what our interest is and not allow ourselves to be dictated to often. Now, this manner in this environment working, for many of them, is a matter of survival. If you go and talk to some of them have degrees, they have no jobs. So whether you like it or not, they think they need to survive. We have people who have finished high school wanting to go to the next stage of their education.
And they need money to
They are
move on.
making money. You have mothers. If you go to communities,
Mothers
people
with children
who
carry
were
their
displaced.
children.
In fact, if you go through the history of surface mining, it has already displaced about 70,000 family heads, landlords. And if each landlord is taking care of 5 people,
then that's 70,000 times 5. That's huge.
It's huge. And once you live in the community, the land is your blood. If you lose your land and you have no other training, no other skill, and even if you want to go into the skills development, it takes some years. And all these things were not planned when companies came and began surface mining. So there's a gap.
So moving forward, we need to intensify education.
Exactly.
So that the miner can work in a safe environment.
But as for the miner,
safer
environment, I am thinking that yes, the government's policies, if they go through, there's one factory, one something district,
one district, one factory,
whatever, one district, one factory, one dam, one village.
In some parts of the
country, the Zungo development agenda.
And there's a monitoring and evaluation minister.
Exactly. So all these will push many of the vulnerable, very vulnerable people who are in this enterprise away from their activities. And then once they are cushioned, then we'll know those who, whether you like it or not, they will be involved in the illegalities.
Then we can deal with them.
You can be dealing with them.
According to the law.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
give us your take
I think
home.
that she's actually said it all. You see, if you look at the majority of these small-scale miners or these illegal miners, they are doing it because they feel they must work. I remember once I spoke to somebody in the field, who was working a very dangerous pit. Some of these people sometimes cave in. And I asked him, my brother, but the way you are mining, there are procedures, the way you are digging, it can cave when you die. He said, my brother, if I stay home, I'll die. So why don't I come into the pit and die?
And they are the end of the chain.
Exactly. But they are in the majority.
Yes. And they are the people who are arrested.
Exactly. Interesting enough, those few ones who have the wherewithal are the ones who control the financial power around the mining.
They are not.
And they are not there. See, so I believe that in the long term, one of the solutions could be that as a country, we must learn to industrialize and create more jobs. Other than that, it will be difficult because a hungry man I have seen is not afraid of the gun. Even when the military are coming, that's why some of them even face the military sometimes. And so sometimes the military, also do not have any option than to, just retreat and then try to also join them, and then they condone and connive. And they create a whole lot of problems. So I think that we must, as a nation, we must industrialize, create more jobs, get most of these people out of the job, because most of them, they will tell you, if they have jobs, they will not do what they are doing. And they tell you that, look, Master, the following day. To wait, the job is very difficult, and sometimes I go underground and I come the following day. So if I have a job, I'll stop and do. So I believe that we need to do that. But I want to say that once we're able to do that, then we can tighten the laws, because the laws, I believe, are still weak. At the moment, if you are a small-scale miner, you go into mining, there's no even bond to safeguard, the interest of the state as against you covering the pit. And then the rationale is that, yes, most of the ASM operators go into the pit without knowing exactly what quantity of ore is in there.
Exactly.
Now, the Minerals Commission is trying to do some
it's like
data.
what we used to call try or luck.
Exactly. So if it's try or luck, how do you tell me that put some money here, and in case you finish and you don't cover it, because I don't even know how much I'm going to get.
So our take home is tighten the laws.
Exactly. So there's some job for us to do as a state. Let's have a data of the mineral deposits before we even lease it out. Once we know and we are giving it to you, we know that you're going to make how much, this much from this pit.
Then you
we
can
should be able to pay such amount down. In case you finish and you don't cover it, we can use that money to reclaim the land.
Thank you very much.
Approach.
Thank you very much. You have heard our guests. The challenges we have in the mining sector are very well known, very well documented. The people we arrest and put on cameras, tie their hands behind them and show on television are not the perpetrators of this evil. We know the people behind this. Let's deal with it so that Ghana will win. My name is Deborah Kwaba. Next week, same time, 3 p.m. Sunday, we'll bring you agenda. My guests have been Dr. Eric Chum, Mrs. Hannah Osu Quarantine, and Mr. Akwaku from the Artisanal Miners Association. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thanks to the production team. We'll come back next week, same time. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and have a productive week next week. Bye.